Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the regular Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order for March 9th, 2021. Welcome, everyone. We have 4 commissioners in the boardroom: Commissioner Brecken, Commissioner Hogue, Commissioner Franzine, and Commissioner Barrows. Commissioner Coring is on Teams. Welcome, Commissioner. At this time, if you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we have open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who would wish to speak on a subject other than what's on our published agenda. There's a 3-minute limit. Do we have anyone? I think Mr. Naslund, are you here to speak at open forum?
Yes, I am. Yep.
All right, if you would start with your name and your address, and then I'll start your 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is actually Clyde Selinsky. I'm logged in on Seth Naslund's page, and then I live on 970 Rock Lake Access Road in Hillman. I actually have a little PowerPoint set up for you guys. You can see here. Can you guys see any of that yet, or no?
Oh, there we go.
We can see it now.
You can see it now?
Yep.
Trying to make it the whole page here. Full screen now?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, yeah, so I'm here to oppose the logging that's going to go on the Rock Lake Access Road from where you can see those big white pines right behind the house all the way to the lake or acre, and there are a few random areas that will be kept as they are. But other than the obvious visual impact the timber harvest will have on the property, I'm also concerned it goes against the very ordinances put in place to protect unique properties like this. What makes this property so special are the steep hills and bluffs that cover it. The county has rules about what can and cannot be done in these areas. To be considered a bluff, a hill has to meet all of the standards. It has to be in a shoreland area, be at least 25 feet tall, and have a grade of 30%. It also has to drain toward the body of water. So like I said, these are just the standards set forth by the county. Right here from the website. The shoreland area is within 1,000 feet of a lake, and as you can see here, a good chunk of this property actually lies within that 1,000-foot area. The grade numbers I took right from the timber harvest report given out by the land department at the meeting I had with them. It says 24.5 of the 37 acres to be harvested are over 25% grade. The 25% grade number is important because it's a minimum it can be and still be protected by the county. I brought these concerns to the attention of a few members of the Land Service Department, including Gary Griffin and Ryan Simonson, claiming these rules do not apply to them. It only applies when someone wants to clear between their cabin and a lake for a better view. I've yet to find this information anywhere. Ryan's last reason was that the title of the property is held by the state and the county only manages it, so they do not need to follow the county ordinances on this property since it's technically state land. But it says right in the county ordinances you cannot cut trees, shrubs, and ground cover. All has to be left on slopes greater than 25%. This again is taken from the county website. The state also protects these areas. They have the same bluff protections. The same standards are within 1,000 feet or 300, all of that. It says that there too. Intensive vegetation clearing in a shore and bluff impact zones and steep slopes is prohibited. So yeah, all I'm asking is that we follow the same rules that I was made to follow when I wanted to do a similar project on my property. Of the other 12 acres that does not fall into these categories, it's actually way out in the swamp. You can see here, but you have to go through the bluff zones to get to it to even
Mr. Naslund,
begin logging.
Mr. Naslund, I have to interrupt you. Your 3 minutes are up, and we will certainly take this information and deal with it. We don't answer questions at this time or make remarks, so thank you very much. And with that,
Is there any way you could send us that PowerPoint so we could finish it?
So, Mr. Naslin, one of the commissioners is asking if you could send that PowerPoint to the county commissioners. All of our emails are on the website.
Yeah. We
Okay.
should do that.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank
Chairman?
you.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Coring.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is in my district, and I did have a conversation, several conversations with Clyde. And then I did have a conversation with the county administrator and asked him to look into this about the bluffs and, you know, about if we are doing something that is contrary to what we're asking everybody else. And so I guess Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to ask the county administrator what he unearthed after him and I had a conversation last week, if he did find any information out. Thank you.
County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we manage 105,000 acres of public land, primarily for timber revenues. Those are managed using management site level guidelines that are certified by the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. And so we follow all of the requirements for logging sustainably that they have laid out for us, including bluff impacts. The main reason for keeping bluffs intact is to prevent erosion, as you can imagine. The title to tax forfeited lands are not held by Crow Wing County, they're held by the state of Minnesota. And so the reference the gentleman is making to we cannot apply our zoning ordinance here, that's why. Crow Wing County cannot apply a zoning ordinance against the state of Minnesota, regardless of what our ordinance says. And so these are held in trust for the state of Minnesota. In this particular case, we did reserve out a number of bluffs that were on this particular parcel. So you see the white crosshatch areas on the map on the screen. That is the areas where we are proposing to harvest. You'll notice where some of the lines are particularly intensely red. Those are gradient lines, 2-foot contours. We've already reserved out a number of bluffs that are on this parcel. There is only 0.4 acres in the upper right hand, the yellow area, that qualifies for the definition of a bluff. If you were inclined to not wish to include those in the sale, I think that's your prerogative. That would not necessarily alter the sale in any significant way, but if the concern is about bluffs, you could take that 0.4 acres out of the sale if you wish. I think that's what I have. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Coring?
To try to alleviate the concerns, you know, of my constituents on the bluff question, I guess I would ask the county board to have that portion that the county administrator referred to, have that removed out of the timber sale.
Okay.
So would I guess I'm looking to the parliamentarian, would a motion be in order, or what would be the best way to proceed on that?
County Administrator is saying that we need a motion, so if you would like to make that motion, Commissioner.
I would make that motion to set aside that area that we deem the bluff area, that we can make sure we preserve that so it's not being eroded. And I think this kind of alleviates the questions that at least that I've received. So I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Franzine seconds that motion.
Okay.
We have a new roll call person with us today. Amy, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Holg,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine. Aye. Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Breckett,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows,
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Coring. With that, we'll move into number 3, which is review and approve the minutes from the February 23rd, 2021 regular county board meeting. Do I have Commissioner Franzine?
Mr. Chair, was there any other open forum people on the line? I see a lot of people on here.
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve the minutes from February 23rd.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Coring. Amy, would you call the roll call, please?
Commissioner Franzine? Aye. Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye, that motion passes.
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Commissioner
Sorry,
Holt?
I missed you.
Number 4 on our agenda today is to review and approve the current agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Do we have, excuse me, 1 second. Do we have an addition for today's agenda? No additions to today's agenda.
Nope.
Look for a motion to approve the agenda as printed. Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Hoag seconds that motion. Amy, if you would call the roll call again, please.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine? Aye. Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. We're now into the consent agenda. Any questions on that before I look for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for the parliamentarian, for the county administrator. And it's probably not a big deal, but when we're setting a public hearing, would it be better if we had that as a standalone motion rather than having it in the consent agenda? I mean, when you're setting a public hearing, that's a pretty high motion. I guess they're all high motions, but it's a pretty important motion to set a public hearing because you're reaching out to the public. And I'm just wondering if those should, I'm just asking for your advice on whether those should be in the consent agenda. This is on that Rat Lake. I actually have had a couple of calls already and said, I hope you're going to be supportive. And I said, well, we're not discussing it today. We're just setting the public hearing. What's your thoughts on that as the parliamentarian?
Administrator Houle.
Mr. Chair, members, Commissioner Coring, I am not aware of anything in Robert's rules that would segregate public hearings into a unique category. There have been, I would say our practice is a bit mixed. There have been times when we have set the public hearings using the consent calendar. I think about like our stand exam plan, the harvest plan for forestry. I think we've set the public hearings using the consent calendar for that. We have taken separate action for public hearings at different points in time, so I don't know that I think our practice is necessarily consistent. So the consent calendar generally is going to be used when we think it has very little potential for controversy. So I don't see any violation of Robert's rules. I think our practice can be what we wish it to be, and so if you would like it to become more consistent one way or the other, or keep doing what we're doing, I think it is completely up to you.
Commissioner Coring, would you prefer to have them pulled off from the consent agenda?
Well, I don't know. It just as I read through our agenda and read through the packet, I don't know. It just kind of set off a light bulb, Mr. Chairman, of when we're setting a public hearing. I'm just wondering if that shouldn't be a separate item, agenda item on the agenda, so that it has a little more prominence to it. But here again, I'm not going to fall on my sword. It's just a thought, and I guess I'm okay if everybody else is with it. But do you kind of understand where I'm coming from? I mean,
Sure do.
when you're setting a public hearing, it is kind of a big deal because you're asking the public's input. And when it's on the consent agenda, it seems like it's kind of routine and, so anyway. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second by Commissioner Franzine. Amy, if you would call this roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine? Aye. Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda passes. We're on to item 6, and I believe Mr. Griffin, or is it Mr. Freed that's going to handle it?
Mr. Chair, this is Jake Free. I'll take this one.
Good
Thank you
morning.
very much, and good morning, and members of the board. First item for your consideration is a request to amend the official land use map for parcel 99110602 from rural residential 2.5 to commercial district 2, involving approximately 6.05 total acres. This is for the property owner of Cato and Karen Manifold. Eric Weston is the authorized agent. Physical address is 19592 County Road 3, Brainerd, Minnesota. The location of where this is at is on packet page 100 and also on page 99. We'll start with the commercial request first. This is a parcel right along County Road 3 and First Assessment. The request is, it's fairly simple and straightforward to zone it commercial. There are commercial zone parcels to the north. The former Woods property is adjacent just to the north, and there is some commercial to the south as well. The surrounding zoning beyond the commercial to the north and the south is primarily rural residential 2.5, and then there's rural residential 10 to the east as well. At the February 18th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, there was a unanimous recommendation by the Planning Commission to approve this land use map amendment. We received some comments from the Highway Department and then one property owner in the surrounding area, adjacent neighbor, who was opposed to this. And the comments from the Highway Department were per usual, adding remarks about being sure to get an entrance permit and to speak with the Highway Department if there's any further development about turning lanes and things like that. So with that, we'll be looking for a motion. I'll take any questions anyone has.
Any questions regarding this piece of property? And for full disclosure, we are the township board for this particular area. So I would look for a motion to approve or deny.
I would make the motion.
Commissioner Hoag makes the motion to approve.
Second.
That Commissioner Coring seconds that motion. For clarification, the motion is to amend the land use map from rural residential 2.5 to commercial district 2, C2, involving approximately 6.05 acres. Amy, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine. Aye. Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes.
Okay. Second agenda item for land services is also for the same property owner and authorized agent. So Cato and Karen Manifold, authorized agent Eric Weston. Property address 19592 County Road 3, Brainerd, Minnesota. This is for a different parcel, of course. This is for parcel 9911057 from rural residential 10 to rural residential 2.5, involving approximately 39.58 total acres. So it's, again, a request to amend the official land use map. On packet page 99, there's probably a good map there that shows you which parcel that is. That's the very large brown 40-acre parcel that's being proposed to change to RR 2.5. The surrounding zoning in that area is primarily rural residential 2.5. There is some commercial to the west, and there it is, and some shoreline district to the east and the south. Access to this parcel is through a county tax forfeited land easement that was granted at a previous county board meeting, 20-foot access. At the same February 18th Planning Commission meeting, as we just heard on the last one, the Planning Commission did make another unanimous recommendation to approve this item. We received, again, the comment from a surrounding neighbor in opposition, and some comments from the highway department with the same kind of information that I just discussed on the last one. So with that, unless there's any questions, we'll look for a motion.
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Franzine.
I just do have one question. I know we did this previously and we granted easement down Kennedy Road and through the tax forfeited property. But since he has access, and I'm not asking to rescind that or anything, but since he has access through his own property, why did we do that?
Commissioner Franzine, I would defer to Gary Griffin and or Ryan Simonson to talk more about the details of the easement.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Franzine, I was trying to pull it up on my map here. I believe that there was a very large wetland at the end of that property that would cause issues for access. But I would have to pull that up again real quick just to confirm. I think that's why we went with the
I do have it pulled
easement.
up and there is, but I just was questioning. So, thank you. That answers my
Yep.
question.
Thank you, Mr. Simonson. So I would look for a motion to amend the land use map from rural residential 10 to rural residential 2.5 involving approximately 39.5 acres of land.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Hoag makes the motion to approve,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Brecken. Amy, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Franzine,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. We're on to 6.3, the 2021 Outdoor Recreation Grant Program application.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board. So as you know, we have a LCCMR grant in with the state to acquire 70 acres around surrounding the fire tower property. And that grant has been tentatively approved. It's in the legislature right now. We expect it'll be approved and signed by the governor this summer into law, and then we'll officially be able to acquire that property. Our plan has always been to just create some walking, some hiking trails on the property once we get it. And so this outdoor recreation grant came available, this opportunity to cover half of the cost of those trails. And so in order to apply for the grant, we need a resolution from the county board. And so that's essentially what we're here for today. The total project to construct all the trails, we're estimating to be about $250,000. And so the grant would cover half of that work. We would, if approved, we would budget for this project in this year and then do the work in 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Simonson. And for the board's knowledge here, I did ask this morning of Land Services to provide us with a strategic plan for all of our parks so that we know where they're planning to go with these development plans. And so in the future, we'll have that available to us along with a budget that would go with each of those plans. So with that, I would look for a motion to approve the resolution 2021 Outdoor Recreation Grant Program application.
I'd so move.
Commissioner Brecken makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoag. Amy, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. County Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. To kind of come back and revisit the topic we talked about at the last meeting was reference to the medical examiner totals for 2020 and some of the questions that followed during that discussion. So I did do some further digging, and Commissioner Coring, you asked how many transports that we did do. I'm sorry, guys. Let me fix my screen here. I see I'm a little bit one-sided. I did look at the the numbers that we had. So 84 cases were accepted by the medical examiner. Of those, 63 were transported by our Stevenson Transport. That's who we have the contract with. And then the discussion also kind of carried into the topic of suicidal calls that we take, or people that have called our office that made mention, or friends even, of someone that wanted to harm themselves. The numbers were kind of disturbing. We pulled them up for all of Crow Wing County. Now, this is not just the sheriff's office. This is for all agencies within Crow Wing County that we dispatch for. In 2020, we had 372 calls for service related to people that had harmed themselves, were looking for assistance, family members calling us with concerns of a loved one, etc. To expound on that a little bit more, just yesterday, we do a morning brief every day and kind of talk about the calls that have come in over the last day and an update. And yesterday alone, we had 3 calls for service that related to this topic. So we've got a lot of work to do as a community, a lot of work to do as a county to help these people out and make sure that we're getting the resources out there. And we've got some strong partners out there, but it is still a topic that we're all aware of. This year has been very stressful, and last year with the sheltered in, not talking to other humans, missing that person-to-person contact. So it's been a stressful year, but we've got some pretty disturbing numbers that are still taking place in our area. Sorry for the bad news, but I certainly wanted to share it with you. And any questions, I'd certainly try to answer. Thank you.
Commissioner Coring, did that answer some of your questions?
Yes, I sure appreciate that, Sheriff. Thank you.
And I also appreciate that, Sheriff. Thank you for being with us. Any questions from the other commissioners? I guess you're scot-free now.
Yeah, please. Thank you. All right. Any questions, please get a hold of me at any time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheriff. County Attorney Ryan.
I do not see that he's on here.
Isn't he way down at the bottom there? Yep.
He was invited, but he's not currently on.
Okay. County Attorney Ryan is not with us today, so we'll move on to Administrator Houle and the Senior Management Team Report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there was a request to add an item to your agenda, so it is up to you whether you wish to add it at this point or not. It was my mistake. So there is a Strong Foundations Family Home Visiting Grant. I think you have information. Do they have information that was on there? Amy, did they have this information?
I do not believe so.
Okay, so the Strong Foundations Family Home Visiting Grant, it's community services use the grant to implement and expand upon their evidence-based family home visiting program. It's a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health to implement and expand upon our family home visiting program. It is a grant that's effective April 1st through June 30th, budget amount $184,283, and July 1st, 2022 through December 31st of 2022 with a budget amount of $75,000. So it's a grant from the state of Minnesota to assist us with work that we're going to do anyway. And so I would ask you, do you want to consider that today, or do you want to have us put that on the next board agenda?
Commissioners?
Tim, is this a grant that we've done in the past?
I don't believe we've done this particular grant in the past. I think it's new from the Department of Health, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
And there's no match or any strings attached, it's just...
Ms. Griffin, can you shed some light on this? Or Ms. Terry?
Hi, Commissioners. I can shed some light. So we have not received this grant before. The Strong Foundations grant is really about getting ahead of the game, so that preventative service that we're trying to do. We'll be working more with infants and toddlers and families to try and build that safe foundation for the kiddos that we serve. Tim is absolutely right. We haven't received these monies before. However, it is work that we are already doing. And I don't have the grant details in front of me yet, and we just learned about this yesterday, so I apologize in not getting you the information timely or in the timelines as expected typically for the board.
Thank you. And unless I hear otherwise, I'm going to add that to the agenda, and I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Hoag makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Franzine seconds that motion. Amy, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. Thank you, folks. Administrator Hool.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yesterday the senior management team met, and as in most of our meetings, we spend most of our time talking about COVID in some way, shape, or form. I'm glad to report that we are shifting that conversation from case counts and trying to deal with the pandemic to vaccinations and trying to get ourselves over the pandemic. I just looked this morning, Crow Wing County has 21.9% of the population who has received at least one vaccine dose. That's a deceptive figure because you think to yourself, oh, 21.9%, that's a long ways from 100. We're never going to get to 100. 16 and younger do not qualify for this vaccine, not yet. That's 15% of our population. So the highest we could get is 85. We know we have snowbirds who are just now starting to return. And I think that's affecting our numbers. There are a number of reasons why I think that it's going to impact those numbers one way or another. Vaccine supply seems to be rising, and that's a good thing in our community. This past week, for the first time, we held a clinic of those over 65, and we had open slots that were not filled. And so I think it's a good indication of where we're at in that vaccination process. I expect today the governor is going to announce that we can move to the next tiers in the sort of priority order that the state has sent. There's some frustrations with that, but all in all, we continue to make progress. And so I'm happy about that. As vaccine supply gets to be more plentiful, we also expect that all of us and our partners, pharmacies, our local area hospitals, clinics, public health, will probably, well, we may need to move into sort of a mass vaccination approach. If the supply was adequate, we could certainly all deliver that. And so we are putting our plans together. All of the partners are starting brushing up their plans about, if that gets to be the case, how could we do that? So wanted to assure you that everybody's thinking about that as vaccine supply gets to be more plentiful. So we're doing our best to move through the population, given the guidance that we've received, in the order in which we're receiving it, with whatever supply of vaccine we're being given. So there are indications vaccine supply is freeing up. So I'm pleased about that. Happy to answer questions about that. I have a couple other items.
Do we know if Johnson & Johnson's vaccine has come into our area?
Yes, it is in the community. But here's what I would say. It is not in plentiful enough supply that someone ought to be thinking, oh, I'm going to wait to get the Pfizer vaccine. I'm going to wait to get the Moderna vaccine. I'm going to wait to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We are still at a place, and all three of these vaccines are very efficacious. They work. Get whichever vaccine you can get. That's where we find ourselves today, is still get whichever vaccine you can get. The clinical trial results on these vaccines is very good. It's on par with polio. It is much better than the flu vaccine. This is our path out of this. And so we do need that vaccination number to continue to climb. But at this point in time, any of them will protect you from serious disease. Any of them will protect you from the risk of hospitalization, and any of them will protect you from the risk of death. And isn't that really the big concern? So get whichever one you can. Yes, it is in our community, but not in plentiful supply yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair.
Do you think as the snowbirds come back, a lot of them have already been vaccinated?
I think there's going to be a mix. I think some who have been vaccinated, and then we'll need to update our figures because they weren't here. We didn't know they got vaccinated. And that could turn out to be a problem yet, where they're recorded in Arizona and we're still thinking we haven't gotten to them. There are going to be other snowbirds that got one vaccine shot down south, and they're coming back up here for the second one, which is fine. We can handle that. We can accommodate that. So I do think that there's a kind of a mixed bag. Here we are in March. Some snowbirds are back by now. Some don't come till the 1st of May. So I think it's a mixed bag.
Commissioner Coring?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, this is kind of directed at you, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but and this would be the appropriate place to bring this up. I was going to talk about it in additional business, but this is what we're talking about now. As you remember, if you go back, we did have a motion by me and seconded by Commissioner Franzine to open the county up, and then it was closed again, kind of because of your thoughts that it needed to be closed. So we closed it up again, and I guess I'm back to you again, saying that I have heard from people why we're closed when Walmart is open, Target's open, grocery stores, bars, restaurants, and they're paying our wages. This is their government. Why are we closed when somebody wants to come in and record a document? Yes, I know that we're not closed. We're open by appointment only, but that isn't the same as somebody walking in. And it isn't going to be long, and the property tax statements are going to come out, and a lot of people want to come in immediately and pay that, and they'd like to get a receipt. I am one of those that likes to get a receipt to make sure I can prove that I paid my property taxes, so there's never any mistake. So I guess I was ready to, I guess I'm ready to make a motion again to open up the county unless the rest of the board can convince me that this is not the right time. If this isn't the right time, when is the right time? I guess so. I guess I'm directing that at you, Steve, because I feel like it was you that brought this up before about closing up the county on a second time.
Thank you, Commissioner Coring, and I am hesitant to have those spikes where we open up and then we reclose, and I think that's a disservice to the public. I don't think either one is a grand plan that's going to make everybody happy. I do think that being cautious and taking that approach, I do understand what you're saying, and I agree with taking a hard look at that. I would like to see us have that discussion perhaps at the Committee of the Whole meeting maybe next week. If you would like to do that, I think it's worthy of a hard look, but I think that we can get additional direction from the state. We can look at what the numbers are for Crow Wing County and see how comfortable we would be with reopening. What I don't want to do, Commissioner Coring, is open up and then have to relock the doors. I think that's just wrong. I think having it open to some degree, if not totally, I mean, I certainly would consider that, but I think that we need to be still a little bit cautious on this. The variants are now in Minnesota, and we don't know what the impact of those will be. So I'm concerned about that, and I don't know if I'm correct in that, but I am cautious about that.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Hull, because you've also been working with the senior management team. What's your sense of reopening?
It is disruptive to both the public and to our employees when we go back and forth. Think about daycare arrangements and the like, and so it is disruptive. And we have been trying to avoid going back and forth too much. Right now, we're keeping an eye on vaccinations, and the best way we can keep our employees safe and the public safe when they come here is vaccinations. Unfortunately, what I also could tell you is that most county employees are in the priority group just above the general public. We're in the last group before the general public. That's the prioritization from the state of Minnesota right now. And so we've tried to avoid the herky-jerky, and we saw vaccinations as the way out. I'm hoping that can be within the next month, but I can't promise that. So that's what our thinking was.
I think one of the things, too, that I look at from the perspective of county government, Commissioner Coring, is that we're required to provide services. Businesses out in the community aren't required. They like their bottom line, but they're not required to be open. We are required to provide certain services by statute, and we have to ensure that our employees can do that. So I think it's important to have that as a piece of our consideration when we decide whether we're going to open up or not open up totally. Just another thought I've had. Commissioner Franzine.
Well, if we all agree that we're going to talk about it at Committee of the Whole, I won't say a lot, but I've been getting calls from constituents who
Yes.
have been here, assuming we were open, the schools are open, everything else has seemed to have opened up. And so at this point, I would more agree with, I don't want to see us opening and closing either. But if everybody else is believing that it's time to open up, I don't want to keep our constituents out, especially the one I heard from yesterday. Already had his check written out to record 2 checks, one for $1.65, one for $42. Came up here, couldn't get in, called, said that he had to have an appointment, and they give an hour-long appointment. He says, so all I need to do is hand him this. So if they're actually making hour-long appointments to accept a check, that's excessive.
And I did speak to Land Services this morning, and I think that issue is being addressed, and they're reevaluating the length of those appointments. And
Okay.
some do take longer, there's no doubt about it, but then there's some that are very short. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had my own encounters over there, and they were always short, but
Mine
that doesn't
too.
mean everybody has a short one when it comes to some of the land use stuff and that. So that's my point, but if everybody is in agreement, I would say we should come with our robust discussion at Committee of the Whole. Would that be fine, Commissioner Coring? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, in the spirit of, like I've said, I'm trying to be kinder and gentler and not be such a mean county commissioner. So I will not make a motion because I'm not trying to put all my other commissioners on the spot. But I, for one, want the building open. I want somebody to be able to come up to our county board meeting. I want somebody to be able to come in and pay for their property taxes or get a permit to build a house. I want that to happen, but I will not make a motion today, Mr. Chair. I'm fine with having a robust discussion at Committee of the Whole, and I'm going to reserve the right to make a motion at the next county board meeting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Commissioner Coring. So we'll put that on the Committee of the Whole for next week. At this time, is there any other business?
Mr. Chair, I could just update you a little bit further. SMT, we also talked about restarting our continuous improvement team efforts. We had put those on hold out of concern for 2 things. One, getting people together in groups was a bad idea for a while. But then also, because of the COVID overlay, we wanted to make sure we weren't overloading our employees. And so we did sort of take a breather. We're restarting that now, as we believe that we'll start it virtually, but then we will also be shifting that to in-person when we can. And we think that the workload is to a point now where we can get back into that. So we're going to be prioritizing different continuous improvement projects that are in the hopper. Happy to answer questions about that or anything else related to county government.
Any questions for Administrator Houle? Seeing none, and if there's no other business, I would look for a motion to go into closed session
So moved.
for the performance review of the county administrator pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05. Commissioner Franzine makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoag. Amy, would you call the roll call, please?
Commissioner Hoag,
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine,
Aye.
Commissioner Coring,
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows.
Chair votes aye. We are going into closed session. We'll take a few minutes for Amy to readjust the electronics. Did you get all that, Chelsea, now? We're set to go? You got all your notes now? Okay.
We did the right thing on that email this morning.
What did we?
There was an email that came in from somebody from Aiken County.
Yeah.
It's a phishing email.
I already deleted it.
Good job.
I got to read that.
I paid it.
You better not.
Okay, good, that was it, okay, thanks.
I like it when they catch them because I usually read them.
Two others came in just recently,
right.
too.
Okay.
Got this really fine print stuff? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you,
What I'd
thank you.
have to say, other than that, they don't have AIS, and I would like services there so that we can keep it that way.
Okay. It's probably on here because she's so good.
I'm having a really hard time understanding you there.
It stopped streaming in this.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Look how straight you're walking. Your back's even feeling better. Oh.
Waiting for a call from my back.
Well, what that would mean is pulling hours from other lakes. But, you know, in order to protect the pristine lakes, I would be okay with that. You know, I don't know if you need any more, but. Well, there is no solution because I really don't want to pull from other lakes either. But we have to go with the amount of hours that were allotted. I just wish we could get more money for more hours. That's my biggest
Need this
question.
map back, Tim?
Yes.
But now, no,
It's on the door already.
so, it is nice weather. So, yeah.
I would like to see us open up, you know.
Well,
We have to be interested in that spring.
I don't know that we have to necessarily go from room to hall, maybe there's some.
Chelsea, you need anything from me?
And then I might need to talk to you about that because I can't get sightings on that. I'm not really sure what else going on with that issue. So, but probably, I mean, I don't think it's anything pressing. I'm still writing stories from the last freaking meeting, so.
I hear you. I will call you later on. We can chat about it and. Okay.
I'll be there in 2 minutes. That was a weird meeting. It's all drive-throughs. Gosh, it felt good when you went through that. Oh, is it? I don't have any effects on it, it was temporary.
They put your immune system is under.
Okay.
I had it stop streaming.